Hey friends of the BiPan Library, I am taking over the Bisexual Resource Center's account today to give a tour of the library. So go over to their account, give them a follow, and I'll be in stories giving you a tour of all these beautiful books. I cleaned the office just for you. Please don't let that go to waste. Hey, you see all these books behind me? Every single one of those books is bisexual, pansexual, fluid, m-spec, bi plus, all about or by people who are attracted to multiple genders. My name is Bren Frederick, and I run a website and physical archive called the BiPan Library. It's an independent archive and research library dedicated to preserving bi, pan, fluid, and m-spec history. Thanks so much to the Bisexual Resource Center for letting me take over their account today. We're going to do a tour of the shelves. It's not just those shelves. They go on forever. Not forever, but there's like a lot of books. If you want some background on how the BiPan Library started and how the BiPan Library's origins have a lot to do with Bi Health Month, which is what we're observing in March, I wrote a little thing for you over on the main feed. So go over to the BRC's profile to read that, to get some background. But here in Stories, we're going to do a tour, and I'm also here to answer any questions you have about the library, about BiPan fluid literature, so leave me some questions and I'll answer them throughout the tour. Here's a broad view of the library. There's my desk. There is a little couch where I do a lot of my reading and resting because I am disabled. And there is the wall of books. So one place to start would be my desk. This is where I do like a lot of work. What's this? The BiPan Library website open on my laptop. Why is this here? BiPanLibrary.com. Give it a visit. Lots of cool stuff. I have this wonderful chair, which I saved up for like months to get. It's called a slipper chair, and it's so comfortable. I can sit cross-legged on it underneath like the keyboard slidey thing. It's so comfortable. Must have. Very good for neurodivergent people who can't sit straight. On top of the desk, I have like, you know, all my office shit. And then I have the books that I most frequently reference over here. So this is, I would say, about 90% of the bisexual literature that's ever been published. I'm pretty confident that that number is close, if not an underestimation. I have acquired the majority of the bi nonfiction that's ever been published in English. And then up top, those are all the periodicals. That's office supplies, and I don't know where this drawer is, and it's driving me up the wall. So let's go look a little closer at these books though. These are not arranged in any particular order except for a couple very specific sections, which I'll show you in a second. I know this part of the collection like the back of my hand. I know most of the collection like the back of my hand, and I can always find the book that I am looking for. I know what all their spines look like. This is my special interest. I'm trying to make it so that you can read the spines if you like. This is a really good title. Life Isn't Binary, On Being Both, Beyond, and In Between by Meg John Barker and Alex Iantoffi. Highly recommend. They did fantastic work there. And it talks specifically about disability. I really do recommend it. This is my friend Vinit's recent release, Bisexual Men Exist. I helped research especially for the health-related chapters in this book. We did a several-hour video call at one point where I just read stuff out of books to him, and I scanned a bunch of pages for him, and it was a really good time. Something really special about Vinit's book is this is the first book that I'm aware of that has used the umbrella term m-spec in the title, much less in the book. And I'm really proud and pleased that he made that decision. Here are some more spines. I want to make a note actually here. Something important to know about the BiPan Library is that I don't only collect books that I like or agree with. The library is really about preserving history and understanding what has been written about BiPAN and fluid people, our place in society, our place in history, and also, honestly, the bigotry that's aimed at us a lot of the time. How we've been written about and how we've written about ourselves. And the differences there can be really important to people's research. So a lot of books here I do not recommend, not for pleasure reading, but they could be really useful for other reasons. This section right here is anthologies, mostly. It looks like some things are shelved here that shouldn't be. But I particularly love anthologies. There is a rich history of bisexual anthology. The first one that I'm aware of ever being published is this book, Bisexual Live. This was published in 1988 by the Off Pink Collective in the UK, Off Pink Publishing. But there's illustrations in it of the people who contributed. There's even some early discourse about like what words do we use for ourselves. This has been a never-ending conversation. Unisexual is not one that I've heard super commonly, but there's a whole long list of different words that we've sort of discussed and tried out as a broader community. Most of the words that you think of as modern alternative words, alternative scare quotes, are not new at all. You can find them in books from the 80s, even the 70s. We are not sitting on the fence, we are building a new garden. Really beautiful stuff. There is actually a website where you can read every piece from this book for free. It's linked on the BiPAN library page for this book. The file cabinet is not really important, but I want you to see this magnet. I did name the printer after Brenda Howard, but because my name is Bren, I felt like naming the printer Brenda would get confusing, so I did name the printer Howard. The printer goes by she, her pronouns, and I love her. And these bat stickers are from my friend Taylor. And then we get to the pin collection, which I just recently got this up on the wall. Open this up. These used to all be just in a drawer and I never got to see them. They're from a variety of places. I've got like the pansexual column here. These all came from sort of different places. I think some of them are from the Biscuit. This set that like all match came from like, I think it was a teenager on Poshmark. These are a selection of the BiPAN Libraries pins, which there's a link on the website somewhere. And then there is some recreations of vintage pins from the 80s and 90s. These two are good examples. Avenge Oscar Wilde, a classic. Safe Sex by All Means. I like this one. Please don't tell anyone I'm bisexual. I'm trying to be discreet. How dare you presume I'm heterosexual? Lots of old bisexual imagery and symbols like this, the bi angles. This is a recreation of a pin from the 80s, and this is the real deal. No bi pins collection is complete without a few D&D themed bisexual pins. And San Junipero, to the classic Black Mirror episode. Your Fence is Sitting on Me is a big favorite of mine. Okay. On this side of the library, look, we've got another cat. This is library cat Lily. She's having a little nap. Love this couch. I spend like half of my day on this couch, to be honest. The wall of books. We have arrived. I'm actually gonna start way over here. So on this side is the YA fiction. This holds the children's books, which there are not a lot of, and not all of the books in this little case are, strictly speaking, BiPAN m-spec. One that I particularly love is this book, which came out, I think it was in 2019, called The Important Thing About Margaret Wise Brown. Margaret Wise Brown was a queer m-spec children's book writer, and Mac Barnett does her such justice in this book, and it specifically talks about how she fell in love with men and women. I really recommend it. It's a gorgeous book. Next to the children's books is this little middle grade section. It goes from here to here. I think there are a couple books missing from it because they're like in my currently reading cart or something. But there's really not a lot to speak of in middle grade, and what there is largely published in the last few years. This is an area I would really like to see grow further. Middle grade is probably when I started becoming very confusing to myself because of my own bisexual identity, and I did not have words or examples in media. Now, in between the split between young adult fiction and adult fiction is this very special collection. This is the zine library. It's over 100 zines at this point. They're all kept with backing boards in sleeves. There's poetry, there's cartoon. Let me see if I can pull you some particularly interesting ones. By All Means is an anthology series. I think this is number 2. Number 1 is in here somewhere. This is one that I printed from an online record. I think it's linked on the website at bypanlibrary.com/zines. You can find links to a lot of these zines, not all of them. Not all of them have like an online footprint at all. And also, I'm kind of behind on updating the zine page. Oh, this is a fantastic one. I love this one. This is a very good question, and I just answered it a little bit by showing you the zine collection. But one of my favorite digital-only resources on the website is the podcast directory. So bypanlibrary.com/podcasts. And also, obviously, there's the pins. I have a couple t-shirts, totes, and other like paraphernalia. It turns into adult science fiction fantasy. This is historical. You'll notice with the shelves, many of them have no books on the bottom shelf. This is not the most secure way to fill a bookshelf. If you're able to reach lower shelves, you should really put things on them. However, I am disabled. I have a mobility impairment that is, or things that I don't, access very frequently. So that's one example of how the library is set up to accommodate me specifically, because I'm the one who uses it most heavily. It makes it very uncomfortable for me to lean down to reach things at bottom shelves, so I simply don't fill them, or I fill them with things like baskets like I have here, where I can just grab the handle and pull it out, or things that I don't, access very frequently. So that's one example of how the library is set up to accommodate me specifically, because I'm the one who uses it most heavily. One of the sections that I'm the most proud of, because so much work went into it, these are little handouts, what are they called, like trifold brochures. I believe in my heart that the day of the trifold brochure is not over, and so I've designed trifold brochures. They're available for free download on the website, so you can download and print your own and use them free of charge. If they are useful to you. So if you run an organization or a library or anything like that, you just want them for yourself, those are available on bypanlibrary.com/downloads. Most recently, let me show you this one. I'm so proud of this children's books one. There were finally enough books on my shelf to create this. It's organized by age group. So each one has what the publisher gave as the recommended age group. And it goes from kindergarten or preschool, honestly, all the way through 8th grade. I say toddlers to 8th grade. And it's really cute. I put these like little doodles all through it just to make it a little bit more like childlike and fun. I'm really proud of this series of downloads. So please, if they're useful to you, go get them, go use them. I really want them to get out there into the world. It turns into adult science fiction fantasy. This is historical. You'll notice with the shelves, many of them have no books on the bottom shelf. This is not the most secure way to fill a bookshelf. If you're able to reach lower shelves, you should really put things on them. However, I am disabled. I have a mobility impairment that is makes it very uncomfortable for me to lean down to reach things at bottom shelves, so I simply don't fill them, or I fill them with things like baskets like I have here, where I can just grab the handle and pull it out, or things that I don't, access very frequently. So that's one example of how the library is set up to accommodate me specifically, because I'm the one who uses it most heavily. This whole tower right here is all adult fiction. At the top we've got romance. I don't reference it frequently, so I don't put a lot of time and money into collecting it. I do keep a private online database of romance and erotica, so I don't ignore it as a research subject, but I don't reference it a lot, so there's not a reason for me to keep it in this space until I have a lot more space than this. And up top here we have comics and graphic novels. And then all of this is contemporary, adult, and new adult, except for Full Disclosure, which doesn't belong on this shelf. This is one of the picks in the BIPAN Library's book list for By Health Month. We're about to get into the nonfiction, which is the section that I pull from and reference a lot more than fiction. So if you see something that's out of place, no, you didn't. Mind your own business. Okay, first in nonfiction, we have memoir. All of this is memoir, plus a couple of these shelves over here. I particularly love collecting the memoir. I think it is so powerful to read the real life stories of BIPAN, fluid, queer people that you relate to, even if the book is not at all about bisexuality, fluid sexuality. I find the experience really moving to see how queer people have impacted history, how we have gotten through in our lives. Some of these books were written before the person came out, and then later they have another book that does address it, or some things like that. So you can see people's progression through life, and I think that's really beautiful. I'm just going to rapidly show you a few favorites. And further over, memoir eventually turns into poetry, essay collections, and biography. Poetry, I feel, often belongs near memoir naturally. So I have all these wonderful tiny little books. This is my shrine to June Jordan, a bisexual hero to us all, I hope. Okay, we're getting to the end of the wall of books. This section is actually not specific BIPAN fluid literature. This is general queer literature, some of which is meant to lend context to other works, some of which is to simply, it's a useful reference, so it's useful to have here, and lots of it, especially up here where lots of history is, BIPAN fluid people were part of all of this history. And some of them are sort of collections. For instance, the letter Q, queer writers' notes to their younger selves. There's some BIPAN fluid content in here, but it's not the majority of the book. But it's still useful, it's still really interesting, and solidarity with other groups within the queer community. That is a thing. But the book has literally nothing to do with that. So I think it's really great to be able to see on a shelf the bisexual or pansexual or fluid or queer fingerprint on literature. So lots of these books that are in this section are particularly notable works of fiction, are very popular, bestsellers, things like that. I very successfully worn myself out and I am starting to have like a lot of symptoms from my chronic illness. So I'm gonna call the tour there. If you care about the work that the BIPAN Library does and you think it's valuable, I really would love to ask you to support on Patreon. It is a lot of work, I put a lot of time into it, and it also takes a lot of money to maintain such a large site. I would love to be able to bring other people into this work, especially for writing and research, and be able to pay them for their time. Thank you so much for caring and being interested in the library, and I hope to see you more over on the website, on the Instagram. We're also on Twitter and TikTok. Have a really good night, everybody.